Hello and welcome to my Solasta Crown of the Master Rogue Class Guide, levels 1 to 5. I'm your host, Methfu. So if this guide ends up helping you even a tiny little bit, please smash that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's go. Right, so let's make a new character. So there's two races that come to mind when I want to play a rogue, and that is Sylvan Elf and Marsh Halfling. But because we are making our rogue a Shadowcaster, that means we are taking the High Elf instead. And the main reason because of that is because we got an ability score increase of intelligence +1. But that's not all we get. We also get ability score increase of dex +2. So normally as a rogue, you'll be using dex as your main stat because you'll be wielding finesse weapons for the whole game. Then we have Fey Ancestry, saving throw advantage against charm, immunity to magical sleep. This is really goddamn strong. It's such a great racial, and it's another reason to pick Elf. So over to Dark Vision, see normally in dim light, and in natural darkness as if in dim light. So darkness is a massive deal in this game. It really screws you over in combat if you are getting disadvantages because you're hitting something in the dark. So this will help negate some of those disadvantages that you would normally get because you're fighting in the dark. Keen senses, proficient in the perception skill. Yes, I'll take that. Trance, 4 hours meditation are sufficient to rest. Once again, I'm not going to say no to that either. Then on to lineage features, movement 6 tiles. 6 tiles is pretty massive in this game. So his mobility really helps during combat when you're trying to get those re-stealths off as much as possible for those juicy sneak attacks. At the moment of this guide, there's another race that gives plus to intellect. So that's one of the reasons we picked High Elf. So Elf weapon training, proficient with longsword, short bow, and longbow. This is pretty big because instead of using a short bow which only does 1d6 damage, we get a longbow which does 1d8. So it gives us a massive damage increase in general for using the rogue in ranged combat. High Elf Cantrip, choose one wizard cantrip using intelligence as a spellcasting ability. So once again, we are Shadowcaster, so having an extra cantrip is really good. Another reason to pick the High Elf for the Shadowcaster in general. So over to the class tab, we're picking rogue for the rogue guide. It'd be really strange not to. So we're now going to go to edit equipment. We need to change a few things around here. So normally as a rogue, you don't want to be using a rapier because a rapier is only a one-handed weapon. It means you can't use an offhand. So we're going to switch that over to short swords. And the reason being is because rogues, they only get to sneak attack once per round or per turn. So using double short swords, that means if we main attack with one short sword and miss, we can make up for that with our offhand attack and still get that sneak attack bonus if this one hits as well. We also don't need the short bow at all because this is only a 1d6 as you can see for damage, whereas longbow is 1d8, and because we are High Elf, we get that proficiency for free and can use that. I normally play my rogue as an archer as well, so most of the time I'm looking to try and stealth as much as possible to get those sneaky juicy sneak attack bonuses, and with the longbow that's going to really enhance my damage as much as possible. Let's go ahead and validate that and go to next. So onto the background tab. So normal background I picked for a rogue is spy, and the reason being is because of spycraft, proficient in stealth and deception. So being a rogue, you want to be able to stay in stealth as long as possible. So I play my rogue normally as an archer, so I'll sit in the back firing off sneak attacks as much as possible. So if I can get really high sneak attack rolls and stay in stealth, it means I'm doing more damage. If you're not sneak attacking as a rogue, you're severely gimping yourself during combat. So over to rough diplomacy, proficient with nature and poisonous kit. So nature's okay, but poisonous kit is the main reason we want this as well. As a rogue, if you put poison on your weapon and you're doing sneak attacks, you're going to be hitting like a truck. You're going to be mega striking people out there. As a rogue, you're doing burst damage to try and take down the priority targets as soon as possible. And poison really helps you out with this because combined with sneak attacks and poison, people are not going to stand a chance. That's a massive amount of damage right there. Additional languages, choose 2 additional languages. I mean, it's not bad. I'm not going to complain about it. It's not really needed for this guide though at this moment in time. Background equipment, this is another reason as well. We get a poisonous kit for free. It means we don't have to buy it at the vendor. Saves us a bit of gold, and it means we can start crafting low-level poisons straight away on the rogue at the beginning of the game. As I said in previous guides, personality flags and alignment doesn't really matter for this guide at all. So it's kind of like for this RP or role-playing purposes, whatever flavor or personality you want your rogue to have during the game. So for the base of this guide, we're just gonna pick whatever, bam, and go next. Okay, now onto the interesting stuff, ability scores. So I normally play a point buy. I play on the hardest difficulty in the game, which is CATACLYSM at the moment of this guide. But you're welcome to roll as well. You can get really high stats out doing this. You can just keep rolling at 18s. I'm not having much luck right now. As you can see, I've got an 18 there, but I normally play with point buy just so it gives me the most even challenge as I can during the game. I'm not too overpowered. I'm also not too underpowered as well. So it's just a nice average challenge for me. Right, so we're going to start off with strength. We're going to bring that up to 10. 10 strength is really good to have. Encumbrance is a massive deal in this game. As a rogue, you will be carrying quite a lot of things on you, like poisons and things like that. So having the extra carry weight is really good. And on top of that, jumping and climbing is really important to get those restaffs off, or just reposition yourself in combat. Jumping and climbing is a massive deal in this game, so having that higher means your athletics is higher, means you can jump further, means you can climb certain walls that you wouldn't normally be able to climb if your stat wasn't a minus on the strength. Now onto dex. We're going to bring dex up to 17. This is like your main thing to max out as soon as possible as a rogue, because even as a Shadowcaster, you want your dex to hit 20 as fast as possible, allow you to hit more, allow you to do more damage. It's just no-brainer stat to take on a rogue. Also on top of that, it gives you more initiative, allowing you to fight or attack first during combat, which is a massive deal as well. It means you can take down things with priority faster than they can kill you. And that's not all. It also gives you AC bonus armor class, so it gives you more survivability, allowing you to avoid a lot more damage that you would normally take if you didn't have the AC bonus on your rogue. So in the con stat, we're taking that all the way to 15. There is no difference in health between 14 and 15, but the reason why we're taking it here is because at level 4, we get another ability score increase. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to put 1 in dex to bring that up to +4, allow us to hit more, do more damage, and we're going to put another point into con, bring that to 16, give us more HP and more saving throws. In general, it's just really strong and makes your rogue a lot more tanky. So we are a Shadowcaster, so we need a tiny bit in intellect, and the best stats I found for Shadowcaster is about 14 in intellect. As a Shadowcaster, you're mainly going to be using utility spells and buffs. You're not going to really be using spells to do damage with, because that's why you got the dex stat. You'll be using your longbow and your short swords to do damage, and your intellect as your utility spells or your survivability. The last 2 points we have going to wisdom. Will saves are probably the most, or if not the most important saves in the game. So having that not a minus is really important in this game, in my opinion. Charisma is a dump stat. We don't really need that at all. So let's go to next. So we're now in the Proficiencies tab, and we get 4 class skills to choose from because we are a rogue. So the first point is going to go into athletics. The reason being is because of jumping and climbing is so important for repositioning as a rogue. Get those restaffs off. It's just really, really good in this game in combat in general. Our next point is going to go into acrobatics. This is also needed as well. It's really important to have this. It just allows you to stay on your feet literally and have more mobility in combat without any sort of penalties when you're crossing over certain terrain. So from what I've heard, sleight of hand is being removed in the main game because they didn't really see much of a use for it. So when the game comes out, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be a thing anymore. I've never had to use it myself at all, so I don't think it's even worth taking. So I'm going to put my last 2 points into investigation because it's now at +4. And the last point goes into insight for a +2. There's no point in putting anything in here because these are all minuses. As you can see, charisma is our lowest stat, so there's no point trying to be the face of the party. And there's no point putting in deception either because it's only a +1 because we got that from our background. But as you can see, our charisma is only 8, so this is not going to make any sort of difference as having a +1 in there. Okay, now class expertise. This is where it gets interesting. We're going to pump that stealth up to +7. As I said before, you need to stay in stealth as much as you can during combat. This will help your stealth checks when people are trying to see where you are and trying to break you out of stealth using their perception checks. Next point is one of the main reasons you take a rogue in the first place. If you don't take someone with a low life background, you want someone to be able to open up locks, which is really important. So we're going to put that into there for the +4. As I said before in my previous guide with languages, just make sure you have an even distribution of languages on each of your party members. Make sure no one's overlapping. Make sure not everyone's speaking halfling. Just like to spread it out as much as you can. And next, so because we chose High Elf as our race, we get to pick an extra cantrip for ancestry cantrips. So I'm going to go through them really quickly, but not all of them. I'm going to miss out the damage ones because we're not going to be using any damage as our spec, because most of our damage is going to come from bow or short swords. Our intellect is mainly just there for our utility as a Shadowcaster. So we're going to skip over Acid Splash. So Annoying Bee, this is actually not too bad. It allows you to put a disadvantage on people's concentration checks. So in other words, if they cast something nasty on you or cast a buff on themselves, this allows you to take it off as soon as possible with your attacks. So Chill Touch. I know I said I wasn't going to cover any sort of damage cantrips, but this is also utility as well, because this allows you to stop anyone from healing if you hit them with it. So it stops the regeneration, it stops clerics from healing up during battle. battle, it's pretty good utility. On top of that, it gives disadvantage on undeads if you hit them with it as well. But undeads are quite resistant to necrotic damage, so just keep that in mind. So Dancing Lights is actually pretty damn good in this game because darkness is a massive deal. If you can't see your opponent, you are getting disadvantage checks on your attack rolls, meaning you're going to be hitting less, meaning you're going to be doing less damage. So Dancing Lights is actually pretty good to pick up. So Dazzle, lower target's AC and prevent reaction until the start of its next turn. I never really need this at all. I tried it a few times, but I never really saw the purpose in it. Most time, I'm not going to want to give up my whole turn of damage just to be able to put this on something. And most of the time, it's mainly used to take away reactions on the opponent to stop them from hitting you. And there's a lot of better spells that you can get on the rogue, especially. You can teleport as a Shadowcaster out of harm's way, or even use the cunning action for your disengage so you can avoid the opportunity attack anyway. So Firebolt, most damage in the game, but we're going to skip over that because we're not taking any damage cantrips. Then onto Light. An object you touch emits a powerful light for a limited time. This is really, really strong. If you don't have a wizard in the party or a cleric that has this, pick it up and put it on your main tank or whoever is in melee the most, so you can light up your opponents and means you don't get any disadvantages on your attacks. Poison Spray, not very good anyway, even if I was a caster, so I'm just going to skip over that. So Ray of Frost, launch a freezing ray at an enemy to damage and slow them, so this hinders them by 2 movement speed. The problem with this is, number one, we need more intellect to be able to hit this consistently during combat, which we really can't. Number 2 is most opponents have a lot of mobility anyway, so this is not going to make a much difference as a utility spell in the long run. Shadow Armor grants 3 temporary hit points for 1 minute on yourself. So the problem with this is that it only gives you a very minimal amount of hit points. Also, it costs an action in your turns. That means you're not going to be attacking, which is a big deal. The faster you kill an opponent, the less damage you take. So we're going to skip over that. Shadow Dagger launches an illusionary dagger that causes psychic damage. One of the better damage cantrips to take as a Shadowcaster rogue. But the problem is we're not going to be using any damage cantrips at all. We're mainly going to be using our bow with poison in it or our melee weapons with short swords. Shine, once again, Shine lives in the shadow of light. This is literally the worst version of light. There's no point in picking this up at all. Light just does everything better than this can. Shocking Grasp. Once again, it's a damage cantrip. And if we're in melee range, we want to be doing sneak attacks and not using random cantrips that not really going to do any damage compared to our sneak attack bonuses that we get as a rogue. So Sparkle, it's got the same problem as Shine. It literally lives in the shadows of Dancing Lights and Light, so to speak, pun intended. And because of that, that is not worth picking up at all. So True Strike increases your chance to hit a target you can see 1 time. So this is not too bad taking the rogue. It grants True Strike, so it means the caster has advantage on the first attack against the spell's target. So in other words, this means that you can do an automatic backstab. The problem is with this ability, it takes your action away. So the only time you would probably use it, if you had to use it, would be in melee range, and you would use it and then offhand attack to get the sneak attack bonus from your offhand attack. But in theory, you could literally just hit your melee weapon and hit your offhand attack anyway to do about the same amount of damage. So we're going to take Light as our cantrip for the high elf. The reason being is because Light's actually pretty damn solid. It's good utility and good to have. And also, if you have a wizard and cleric, it frees up slots for them if they want to take another cantrip for themselves. So appearance doesn't really matter for this guide, so we're just going to skip over that. Let's call it Rogue for the base of this guide. So we have a Rogue. Let's start leveling this up. So we're now at level 2. So we get more hit points. We get Cunning Action. You can take a bonus action on each of your turns in combat. This action can only be used dash, disengage, or hide action. This is one of the main reasons to take a rogue. Being able to disengage and do hit and run tactics is really good. Dashing as well for mobility to get into range of things is also very good. Doesn't take up any sort of attacks. And also hide action allows you to re-stealth during combat without using your action up. So it means you can re-stealth and then attack at the same time during the same turn on the same round. So level 3, you get more hit points, and now we get to pick a roguish archetype that will steer your talents in varying directions. Okay, let's have a look at what we got to choose from. So roguish archetype, we're going to pick Shadowcaster for this guy, but I'm going to go with the others with you very quickly. So fast hands, cunning action allows you to take the use and object action. I never really found the use for that at all. It just seems a bit redundant when you can literally just pre-buff yourself before combat and apply it like a poison to your weapon or use something in general. It's just a bit rubbish compared to what you can get generally. Second story work. Climbing no longer costs you extra movement. Difficult climb surfaces are considered normal for you and you can jump longer distances. Well, the thing about this is there's another 2 subclasses here that does this better in general. This is just really weak. There's no point in it. The Shadowcaster can teleport. The Dark Weaver can wall climb with its spider climb ability. There's just no point in having this in general. This archetype is probably the worst one out of the 3. And it needs a buff, I feel. So over to the subclass Dark Weaver. Bonus proficiency. Proficient with the Poisonous Kit. Really good to have because, as I said, poisons are really good on a rogue. You want to try and Omega Strike things out there as soon as possible. Take out the priority. Take down the biggest threats of the combat with your burst damage. Spider on a wall. Climbing no longer costs you extra movement, and difficult climb surfaces are considered normal for you. Once again, you can literally climb anything with this. This is really goddamn strong. Like, compared to Thief, second story work, Spider on wall is just way better in general. Then we got Predator. When hitting an enemy on lower ground with a ranged weapon, add your proficiency bonus to the damage. This is pretty damn good if you're going to ranged rogue, and it adds quite a bit to your damage rolls in general. Then we got Shadowcaster. Spell casting, cast wizard spells and cantrips from the divination, illusion, necromancy and abjuration schools, which is pretty good. Gives us loads of utility. As I said, we're going to be using this as utility and a buffer. Also helps with our survivability as well later on. Shadow dodge. As a bonus action, teleport to a cell you can see within 5 cells, with charges after a rest. So once again, this allows us to get away. It allows us to restart if we want to. If we're in a tricky position where we're being absolutely ganged up on, we can teleport out of harm's way as well. Very strong spell to have for utility. And now onto subclass cantrips. So we get to pick more cantrips on top of the ones we already had. So now in the spells section, we're going to pick 3 subclass cantrips we can pick. So we'll take Chill Touch for the utility to stop people from healing up. We'll take Annoying Bee to ruin concentration checks on other casters or people that buff up the clerics and wizards. And on top of that, we're going to take Shadow Dagger just in case there's something that's really resistant to melee damage or physical damage in general, just so we have an extra option just in case that happens. That I don't think it will, but you never know. You might as well be prepared. So now we're going to pick subclass spells from Spellbook level 1. So let's have a look through and go through them really quickly. So Color Spray. Color Spray isn't actually too bad on the road because you will be in melee a fair amount. Your speed is moving around a lot. And it's actually quite good because it gives the blinded debuff effect. So when something's blinded, it means they're taking disadvantage attacks. And if they're taking disadvantage attacks, that means they are taking sneak attacks from you. So it's actually quite strong to use if you use it on multiple targets. So it's actually not too bad to have. Comprehend languages. For the duration of the spell, you understand the literal meaning of any spoken words that you hear. Not bad for utility. I'm pretty sure the wizard or the cleric will probably pick this up at some point though. But if you don't have one of those, then this is probably quite good to grab. To detect magic, detect nearby magic objects or creatures. Once again, the wizard could use this as well to cast it as a ritual. But you can take it on the rogue as well if you wanted to. If you wanted to save your wizard a slot. False life. Gain a few temporary hit points for a limited time. It gives you a fair amount of hit points compared to shadow armor. So this is actually quite worth taking if you need to increase your survivability a bit or just last a tiny bit longer during combat. Identify the hidden properties of an object. In this game, you can't short rest to identify. So identify spell is actually really good to have because it saves you a lot of gold in the long run. Normally your wizard though will probably pick this up and start identifying for themselves. But if you don't have a wizard, this is actually quite decent to have on the rogue just for utility, save you some money and allow you to identify items straight away as soon as you get them without having to wait till you go back into town. So mage armor, because we are rogue, our dex is going to be really high and we're also wearing light armor as well. So we don't really need anything like this to increase our AC because it's not actually going to make any difference to us in the long run. Protect versus evil and good. This is really strong. It's disadvantages to multiple races. It also allows you not to be charmed. It also allows you not to be possessed. It's just really strong in general. Great utility spell to use. And you could cast this pre-combat if you wanted to get that extra mitigation that you need. Then we got Shield. So Shield is probably one of the best spells in this list here for the Shadowcaster Rogue. Increase your AC by 5 just before you would take a hit. This is a reaction spell, so if you find yourself surrounded by enemies, if you cast it at the start of the round on a reaction, so say for example an enemy is about to hit you and there's another 2 or 3 enemies going to hit you afterwards, this will last the whole time until it's your turn again. So it means you've got a permanent 5 AC there, increasing your survivability, making you very tricky to deal with as a rogue, and also it's just a very strong ability on most classes. It's a very good spell. Okay, so the 3 subclass spells I would pick for Shadowcaster Rogue: Detect Magic if I don't have a wizard or cleric, Identify if I don't have a wizard and cleric. I would pick up Shield because Shield is probably the best one here and it's really good to have for survivability if you get caught with your pants down, so to speak. Color Spray is pretty decent as well for those sneak attacks. If you can hit multiple enemies with that, it's really good damn strong. Blindness is actually quite a good debuff to use. And the third one I would pick is Protect versus Evil and Good. If you can apply this to yourself before combat or even during combat or your main tank, whatever you want to do, if you get extra spell slots, cast this. It's pretty damn good against a lot of things. So I'm going to pick that up there. That's finished. So we're at level 4 now. We've got more HP. We've got an extra spell slot, 1 spell more to select as well. And we also get ability score, which is much needed. So we're going to go next and we're going to place this into Dex and Con. So as you can see, if I take that away, my HP has gone up by quite a bit just from having the extra con there, which will snowball quite nicely as I level up even more. Every time I level, I get more HP, and it's retroactive as well. So it means I didn't miss out on anything for not having that 16 con at the beginning. It's all retroactive, the HP gains that you get per level. Then we also have Dex, which is 18. 18 is a really good sweet spot to have on a rogue. Obviously, you want to take that to 20 eventually because it is your main stat. Gives you AC, gives you initiative, and it also gives you more rolling on attack rolls and on damage rolls. So this is a no-brainer thing to max out as soon as possible. Okay, on to next. So we get to pick more spells now. So once again, if you don't have a wizard or cleric, take Detect Magic. And once again, the same with the Identify. If you do have them though, and they have it, and you don't need anything else on them, then take False Life on the rogue just for the extra survivability. You never know when you might need it. You can cast it. Most of the time you're going to be using your spell slots for shield and probably Protect Evil and Good and Color Spray. But yeah, it's completely up to you. So we finished there. Let's level up for the last time to level 5. So now we get increased all our saving throws, we've got more HP again. As you can see, we're getting pretty damn tanky for a rogue. Coupled in with our spells that give us more tankiness, makes us an absolute beast to deal with, because obviously that shield spell and reaction gives us a lot of AC that we can use. We also got massive saving throws from being a rogue, and we also now got Uncanny Dodge. When attacker you see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to half the attacker's damage. Also insanely good. So say for example someone hits you for 12, it means it's now doing 6 damage if you use your reaction for that. Really strong. It makes a rogue very tanky and very hard to deal with, which is nice. So we finished there. Just as a final note that many people may not know is that rogue will sneak attack when it has the advantage. So if you have a tank or anyone in melee range with the enemy you're trying to hit, that counts as an advantage attack. That means it's automatically going to get the sneak attack bonus on my damage. Meaning all you need to do is have another character in melee range with whatever you're trying to kill to get those sneak attacks in. Anyway, that is the end of my rogue class guide. If you have any other videos you want me to do or any suggestions on what to make, please ask. I'll be happy to do them. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.